Something that might sound strange coming from a health channel. Eating eggs every single morning isn't automatically enough anymore, not once you're past 75. I know that sounds almost backwards. Eggs are one of the best proteins there is. But here's what almost nobody explains at a routine checkup. After 75, muscle simply doesn't respond to protein the same way it did at 50. You can eat 2 eggs, even 3, every single morning and still slowly lose strength month after month without doing a single thing wrong. I'm Dr. Will Aim. Over years of clinical work, I've seen scans and grip strength tests on older adults who were, on paper, eating enough protein and were still shrinking in muscle size year after year. That gap between eating enough and actually building or maintaining muscle is one of the more important and least discussed problems in aging. And it comes down to one phrase: anabolic resistance. Here's what that means in plain terms. Past 75, muscle fibers eat a stronger, more specific signal to actually respond to protein than they did decades earlier. Eggs, chicken, dairy, all excellent protein, but on their own, they don't address 3 things working against aging muscle: chronic low-grade inflammation, reduced blood flow into muscle tissue, and weakened nutrient signaling at the cellular level. You can hand aging muscle all the bricks in the world, but if the construction crew isn't getting the memo to start building, those bricks just sit there. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Certain fruits contain compounds that support exactly the signaling pathways behind muscle growth, improve circulation into muscle tissue, and calm the inflammation that quietly blocks that growth. Paired with your regular protein, they help your body actually use what you're eating rather than let a good portion of it pass through unused. Today, I'm walking you through 5 fruits that support muscle health in adults over 75, ranked from genuinely useful to, in my view, the most valuable of the 5. Stick with me to the end because the last one has one of the more well-rounded nutrient profiles I've come across for this specific age group. And I'll also give you a simple way to combine several of these into one daily routine. Before we start, a quick question. How old are you right now? And honestly, do you feel stronger or weaker than you did 2 years ago? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and it genuinely shapes what I cover in future videos. This channel exists because a 10-minute appointment rarely has time to go through any of this properly. One more thing before we begin. Nothing here replaces protein or medical advice or an existing eating plan from your own doctor or dietitian. Think of these 5 as additions that help your body use what you're already eating more effectively. Let's start with number 5. 5, jackfruit. Most people have never even tasted jackfruit, and that's honestly a shame because this enormous tropical fruit is one of the stronger plant-based protein sources available. A cup delivers a modest few grams of protein on its own, not dramatic, but what makes jackfruit genuinely interesting is its amino acid profile. It carries a reasonably complete set of the building blocks the body needs to trigger what's called muscle protein synthesis, essentially the process of turning dietary protein into actual muscle tissue. What makes jackfruit particularly useful for someone over 75 is what travels alongside that protein: potassium, magnesium, and vitamin B6. 3 nutrients aging muscles genuinely need, but very often run short on. Let's go through each of those because they matter individually. Potassium keeps muscle contractions strong and stable, and it's a big part of why some people wake up at 3 a.m. with a sudden, painful calf cramp. Low potassium is very often part of that picture. Magnesium works almost like a natural relaxant, helping muscles recover after any kind of activity, even something as ordinary as a walk to the mailbox or a flight of stairs. And vitamin B6 might be the most underrated of the 3. It's what actually helps the body convert dietary protein into usable muscle tissue. Without enough B6, protein can pass through the digestive system without doing nearly as much of its job. Some research following older adults who ate jackfruit regularly over several months pointed to a modest but real improvement in grip strength, And grip strength is worth pausing on for a second because it's one of the most reliable predictors researchers use for overall longevity and independence in older adults. It's a simple measurement, but it tracks with an enormous amount about someone's overall physical resilience. So how do you actually use jackfruit day to day? Because most people genuinely don't know what to do with it. Canned young jackfruit is available in almost any grocery store now, usually in the international foods aisle. It has a mild flavor and a shredded texture that, once cooked, honestly resembles pulled chicken or pork. The simplest preparation: drain the can, pat the pieces dry with a paper towel, and saute them in a pan with a little olive oil, garlic, and whatever seasoning you like. Within about 10 minutes, you have a warm, savory, protein-supporting meal. If cooking feels like too much some days, ripe jackfruit, different from the young, savory variety, is naturally sweet and blends beautifully into a morning smoothie with banana and almond milk, a protein-friendly breakfast that takes under 2 minutes to put together. Consistency matters more than any single serving, so aim for at least a few servings a week if you want to notice a real difference in how your muscles feel and perform over a month or two. One small synergy tip: pair jackfruit with a source of vitamin C. A squeeze of fresh lemon works well, since vitamin C appears to meaningfully improve how well the body absorbs and uses plant-based protein. Jackfruit is a solid starting point, but the next fruit on this list is even more protein dense, and it carries a genuinely interesting weapon against the inflammation working against aging muscle. Quick pause here. If you're finding this useful so far, take a second to hit like and subscribe. And if you know someone over 70 who'd benefit from this, send it their way. It genuinely helps this information reach the people who need it. 4. Guava. If there's one fruit that deserves to be called a well-rounded package for someone building or maintaining muscle after 75, it's guava. A single guava carries a surprising amount of protein for a fruit, more than most people would ever guess looking at it. Comparable in some measurements to what you'd find in a much larger portion of many other fruits combined. But protein content alone isn't really the headline here. Guava is unusually rich in a compound called quercetin, a natural anti-inflammatory, and this matters enormously for a very specific reason. Researchers use the term inflammaging to describe the slow, chronic, low-grade inflammation that quietly increases with age. Think of it as a low simmering fire under the surface, one that breaks muscle tissue down faster than the body can rebuild it. It's arguably one of the most under-recognized reasons some seniors continue to lose strength, even while eating what looks, on paper, like plenty of protein. Quercetin helps turn that fire down. When inflammation eases, muscle tissue gets a real chance to use the protein it's given to actually rebuild, rather than spending most of its energy simply trying to survive ongoing inflammatory stress. That distinction, using protein to build versus using protein just to survive damage, is really at the heart of why some people respond well to a high protein diet and others, frustratingly, don't. Guava also delivers considerably more vitamin C than an orange, gram for gram, several times more in most comparisons, and vitamin C is essential. Collagen is the structural protein holding muscles, tendons, and ligaments together, the connective scaffolding that keeps the whole system functioning as one unit rather than a collection of separate parts. Without enough collagen, muscles and the tissue around them become more prone to strains and tears, part of the general fragility a lot of people over 75 quietly accept as inevitable, when a meaningful part of it doesn't have to be. Preparing guava is refreshingly simple, which matters because nobody sticks with a plan that takes too much effort. You can eat it completely raw, wash it, and bite into it like an apple, skin included, since the skin actually carries the highest concentration of both quercetin and fiber. If you prefer something softer on the teeth, slice it in half, scoop the flesh with a spoon, and mix it into oatmeal or yogurt for a quick, protein-supporting breakfast that takes under 5 minutes. It also blends nicely into a smoothie with Greek yogurt and a handful of spinach, a genuinely strong combination for both inflammation and protein. For maximum benefit, some evidence suggests eating guava roughly 30 to 45 minutes before physical activity. A walk, chair exercises, light resistance band work may help your body make better use of both the quercetin and the protein while your muscles are actively working. Guava is genuinely strong on its own, but the next fruit contains something researchers have found quite unique for supporting muscle in later life. 3. Dried mulberries. Dried mulberries are the quiet, underrated entry on this list. Almost nobody talks about them, but the nutritional profile reads almost like something designed specifically with aging muscle in mind. A small quarter-cup serving carries a decent amount of protein alongside a meaningful dose of iron, and that combination genuinely matters for older adults specifically. Here's why iron deserves real attention here. Iron is what carries oxygen to muscle tissue through the bloodstream, and without adequate oxygen delivery, muscle simply cannot repair, recover, or grow properly, no matter how much protein sits on the plate. Research has linked lower iron levels in older adults to a meaningfully faster rate of muscle loss, which makes the iron and protein pairing in mulberries a genuinely useful 2-for-1. What really sets dried mulberries apart, though, is an unusually high concentration of resveratrol, the same compound that made headlines years ago in red wine research, but here without any of the downsides that come with alcohol and in meaningfully higher concentration. Resveratrol is associated with activity along cellular pathways connected to how well muscle cells repair themselves and how efficiently they generate energy. It essentially supports the tiny energy-producing structures inside every muscle cell, which naturally slow down with age. Picture mitochondria as small power plants. As we age, some of those power plants dim or shut down entirely, which is a real part of why muscles feel more tired and weaker with each passing year. Compounds like resveratrol appear to help keep more of those power plants online and functioning. The genuinely nice part about dried mulberries is that they require zero preparation whatsoever. Eat them straight from the bag as a snack, the way you would raisins. They have a naturally sweet, slightly tart flavor most people find quite pleasant. Sprinkle them over cereal, oatmeal, or a salad for an instant protein and iron boost, or mix them into a trail mix with almonds and a few dark chocolate chips for a genuinely muscle-supportive snack you can carry in a pocket or bag. For maximum iron absorption, eat mulberries alongside a source of vitamin C. Orange slices or strawberries work particularly well since vitamin C meaningfully improves how much iron the body actually absorbs from a meal, meaning more oxygen reaching muscle tissue and potentially faster recovery after activity. Hold on to that thought, because the next fruit changes how a lot of people think about muscle-building foods entirely. 2, avocado. I know what you're thinking. Avocado is a fruit? It genuinely is, botanically, and it might be one of the more important additions to a daily plate for anyone over 75 focused on strength and independence. A medium avocado carries a modest amount of protein on its own, a few grams, nothing dramatic. What makes avocado genuinely special is what that protein arrives paired with, a substantial amount of monounsaturated fat, close to 15 grams in a typical medium avocado. Before that fat content makes you hesitate, let me explain why it's actually working in your favor here, not against you. Muscle cells are surrounded by a protective membrane made largely of fat. With age, these membranes can become stiffer and less permeable, meaning nutrients, including the protein you're eating, have a genuinely harder time getting into the cell where they're actually needed. The monounsaturated fat in avocado appears to support more flexible, more permeable cell membranes, helping protein and other nutrients move into muscle cells considerably more efficiently than they otherwise would. Research following a large group of older adults over several years found that those eating avocado regularly retained meaningfully more muscle mass and scored better on measures of physical function than those who didn't, even when total protein intake between the groups was essentially identical. That finding is worth sitting with for a moment, because it suggests the type of food delivering your protein may matter almost as much as the raw amount of protein itself. Avocado is also one of the richest food sources of potassium available, more preserving than a banana in most comparisons, essential for proper muscle contraction, healthy nerve signaling, and preventing the cramps and spasms that plague a lot of older adults. On top of that, avocado carries meaningful levels of glutathione, sometimes described as the body's master antioxidant, which helps protect muscle cells from oxidative damage. Damage that's been linked in research to accelerating age-related muscle loss. Avocado's versatility makes it genuinely easy to work into daily life, regardless of cooking ability or energy on a given day. The simplest approach? Cut one in half, remove the pit, and eat it straight from the shell with a spoon and a pinch of salt. A complete, effortless option requiring zero cooking. Mash it onto whole grain toast for a protein and healthy fat breakfast. Blend half an avocado into any smoothie for a creamier texture and a real nutritional boost. Or dice it into soups, salads, or scrambled eggs. A nice way to round out eggs if you still enjoy them regularly. For the strongest possible benefit, some research points to eating avocado within about an hour after physical activity, since that window is when muscle tends to be most receptive to incoming nutrients, protein, healthy fat, and potassium arriving together during that window creates what's sometimes called an optimal environment for muscle repair. Everything so far has been genuinely useful, but the final fruit on this list, in my view, has the most well-rounded profile of the five. 1. Dried apricots. A half-cup serving of dried apricots delivers a solid amount of highly usable protein, alongside a genuinely impressive combination of beta-carotene, potassium, iron, copper, and fiber, a nutrient density that punches well above what you'd expect from a small dried fruit. Let's start with potassium, because the numbers here are genuinely notable. Just half a cup carries well over 1,000 milligrams of potassium, close to a quarter of a typical daily requirement from a single snack. Potassium is non-negotiable for proper muscle function. It regulates the electrical signals telling muscles when to contract and when to relax. Without enough of it, muscles misfire, cramp, feel weak, and simply can't perform the contractions needed to maintain or build strength over time. Dried apricots also carry a meaningful amount of copper, a trace mineral most people never think about, but one that plays a real role in forming the connective tissue holding muscle to bone. That means apricots aren't just supporting the muscle fibers themselves, they're supporting the structures keeping those muscles properly attached and functioning as an integrated system, which matters enormously for balance and mobility, not just raw strength. The beta-carotene and polyphenol compounds in apricots also contribute genuine antioxidant support, helping offset some of the oxidative stress associated with age-related muscle decline, working alongside everything else on this list, rather than through any single dramatic mechanism. I want to be straightforward here. Apricots aren't a miracle food. They're a well-rounded one, and that's exactly why they earn the top spot on this particular list. One important note I want to be very clear about. Eat the dried fruit itself, not apricot kernels or seeds. Kernels contain compounds that are genuinely unsafe in concentrated amounts and offer none of the benefits described here. Some online sources have promoted apricot kernels or extracts made from them for health purposes, and that's not something I'd recommend. Stick to the fruit. Practically, incorporating dried apricots is refreshingly easy. No cooking, no preparation, no special equipment. A handful, roughly 6 to 8 dried apricots, about a quarter cup, makes a genuinely satisfying snack at any point in the day. Some evidence suggests mid-morning or mid-afternoon gives the body the longest reasonable window to absorb and use the nutrients before an overnight fasting period begins. Chop them into oatmeal or yogurt, or combine them with the dried mulberries from earlier in this list. Unsweetened, unsulfured varieties without added sugar are generally the better choice for what genuinely amounts to one of the more muscle-friendly snacks someone over 75 could carry around. Putting it all together, a simple daily routine. Let me bring this together into something practical, because a list of 5 fruits is only useful if it fits into an actual day. Here's a simple way to think about weaving these in without overhauling your entire diet. In the morning, a small handful of dried apricots or mulberries alongside your usual breakfast, oatmeal, yogurt, or eggs if you still enjoy them, works well and takes no extra time. Mid-morning or early afternoon, half a guava or a small serving of jackfruit makes a good snack particularly on a day you're planning to walk or do some light activity. In the evening, half an avocado added to dinner, on toast, in a salad, or simply on its own, rounds out the day nicely. None of this needs to happen all at once, and none of it needs to be perfect. Adding even one or two of these fruits consistently several times a week tends to matter more than trying to do everything on this list every single day and burning out on it within a fortnight. A word on realistic expectations. I want to be honest with you about something before we wrap up. These fruits are not a replacement for adequate protein, for resistance-based movement, or for a conversation with your own doctor about your specific health picture. What they do is support the biological environment that lets your body actually make good use of the protein you're already eating, easing inflammation, improving circulation in the muscle, and supplying nutrients aging muscle specifically needs more of. The changes here tend to be gradual: better grip strength, an easier time standing up from a chair, steadier balance, over weeks and months rather than days. That's a genuinely realistic and achievable kind of progress. And in my experience, it's the kind that actually sticks because it comes from small daily habits rather than a dramatic short-term fix. Wrap up. So to recap, jackfruit for a complete amino acid profile alongside potassium, magnesium, and B6. Guava for quercetin's anti-inflammatory support and a strong dose of vitamin C for collagen. Dried mulberries for iron and resveratrol, supporting oxygen delivery and cellular energy production in muscle. Avocado for healthy fat that helps nutrients move into muscle cells more efficiently, alongside potassium and antioxidant support. And dried apricots, my top pick, for a genuinely well-rounded combination of potassium, iron, copper, and antioxidants, supporting both muscle and the connective tissue holding it all together. None of these fruits work alone, and none of them replace the basics: adequate protein, regular movement, and good medical guidance. But added consistently, they can genuinely help your body make better use of everything else you're already doing right. If this was useful, subscribe. I put out research-informed guidance every week for exactly this stage of life. And tell me in the comments, which of these 5 are you going to try first? I read every